Salutations, Internet adventurer. Where in the world are you watching from today? A peaceful village? A sleepless city? Somewhere in between? Tell me in the comments. And if this video made your day even 1% better, share the love and the link. A chunk of concrete came within inches of striking Declan Morrissey's head. In all his 23 years working as a structural engineer, nothing had brought him closer to death than this moment. The irony wasn't lost on him. 6 months ago, he'd personally signed off on the safety inspection for this tunnel. Jesus, Declan. Tommy Fitzpatrick's voice rang out behind him. You all right? Declan shook the dust off his jacket and gave a terse reply. Still breathing. At 48, he could tell the difference between raw panic and a jolt of adrenaline. The evening commute dragged painfully slow. October rain turned the highway into a blur of taillights and reflections. From the driveway, he caught a glimpse of Camille through the kitchen window, moving methodically between the counter and the stove. Even after almost 20 years of marriage, the sight of her still stirred something warm and familiar in him. There he is, our brave man of the hour, Camille said as he stepped into the house. She was tending a simmering stew, her auburn hair pinned back, a picture of practiced grace. At 45, she still carried herself with the poise and endurance of someone used to 12-hour shifts at the hospital. Ava called, she said, glancing over her shoulder. She landed that promotion, senior account manager. Wants to take us out this weekend to celebrate. Their oldest had been fighting her way through Philly's cutthroat marketing world, and this advancement meant she could finally stop worrying about the mortgage, something Declan had been quietly covering behind the scenes. That's fantastic, Declan said with a smile. Heard anything from Isabel? You know her, Camille sighed. Only calls when her bank account's empty. Otherwise nothing. She's 18. Comes with the age. Normal, right? Camille said flatly. Their family's unofficial motto. Predictable bills, predictable milestones, predictable love. Declan had constructed his life around the idea that stability was its own kind of success. A concrete panel nearly crushed me today, he said, settling into the kitchen chair. Camille froze in place, spoon hovering midair. What? The tunnel gave way during an inspection. Missed my head by about this much, he said, holding up 2 fingers close together. He hesitated. Makes you think about how short life really is. Were you injured? She asked softly, placing a hand over his. No, just rattled. But it got me thinking. We've always talked about going to Costa Rica. Maybe it's time we actually did it. Camille's expression flickered. Was it irritation? Doubt? Whatever it was, it vanished before he could pin it down. We can't afford something like that, she said. Not with Ava getting settled and Isabel's tuition still hanging over us. There's always a way. Life doesn't wait, he said. And neither do the bills, she replied. Some of us have to stay grounded. The words hit harder than expected. He knew she was overworked, juggling double shifts, covering admin tasks. She was running on fumes. Later that evening, she retreated to her office, citing paperwork. Declan drifted between TV channels, unable to settle on anything. His thoughts kept circling back to the tunnel, the falling concrete, how close he'd come. Eventually, restless, he went upstairs to check his email. Camille's phone was charging on the nightstand, only it wasn't alone. Next to it sat another phone, quietly vibrating. Declan had never been the suspicious type. In nearly 20 years of marriage, he'd never once checked her messages or questioned her schedule. Their foundation had always been trust. But the vibration kept going, steady and unrelenting, until his eyes were drawn to the screen. It wasn't her usual device. He didn't recognize this one. A message popped up. Can't wait for tomorrow. Marriott, room 412. Fill you. His breath caught. The screen dimmed and the room felt colder. 2 decades in engineering had trained his mind to tackle problems logically. Step 1, collect the data. Step 2, analyze the facts. Step 3, draw conclusions. And the conclusion was unmistakable. Camille had a second phone. She was arranging to meet someone she referred to as W, at a hotel. Those endless work nights and emergency shifts now took on an entirely different meaning. He descended the staircase silently, skipping over the third step that always groaned under pressure. Her purse sat unattended on the kitchen counter. Unzipping it, he sifted through the typical contents. Phone, wallet, keys, everything appeared normal. Until his fingers brushed against something unfamiliar. A folded slip of paper, buried in a narrow inner pocket. A hotel receipt. Downtown Marriott, 3 nights ago, room 412. Declan snapped a quick photo and tucked it back in place, ensuring nothing looked disturbed. Years of engineering had trained his brain to detect stress fractures, pressure thresholds, and hidden vulnerabilities. Now, that same instinct zeroed in on the fractures in his own life. The next morning, Camille left before the sky turned fully light. She leaned in to kiss him goodbye, a familiar ritual they'd repeated for almost 20 years. But this time Declan caught details he hadn't noticed before, how she wouldn't meet his eyes, how her voice wavered just slightly. She said she'd be home late again. Another late meeting? According to her doctor. Klein had called an emergency session for the board to go over a sudden budget issue. Don't wait up, she added, trying too hard to sound casual. After the door shut behind her, Declan dialed a number he knew by heart. Fitzpatrick Investigations, came the voice on the other end. Tommy, it's me, Declan. I need to talk something through. Tommy Fitzpatrick, his old college roommate, now a private investigator. They still met up from time to time, usually over drinks. What's up, Dec? Tommy asked. Let's say someone had a few suspicions and wanted to verify them. How would you go about that? Purely hypothetical? Tommy's tone grew serious. You sound like a guy who found something he really didn't want to see. Meet me at Flanagan's after work, Declan said. The rest of the day dragged, filled with site visits and construction plans. But his mind couldn't let go of one gnawing truth. Camille was having an affair. That evening, Flanagan's buzzed with the usual mix of background chatter and clinking pint glasses. Tommy was already in their usual booth, nursing a beer and scanning the day's sports scores. You look like hell, he said as Declan slid into the seat. I feel worse, Declan replied, signaling the bartender for a neat whiskey. I need your help. He laid everything on the table, the burner phone, the suspicious receipt, her frequent late nights. Tommy listened closely, jotting brief notes into a worn pocket notebook. Klein, that's Wesley Klein, right? The orthopedic guy at Riverside General? Declan gave a single nod. He split with his wife about half a year ago. Ugly situation. I actually worked that case, from her side. Klein's reputation? Let's just say he doesn't exactly separate work from pleasure. The hospital's been keeping quiet tabs on him for a while. I need more than rumors, Declan said. I need evidence. Evidence for a legal case? Maybe. Or maybe I just want to see how deep this goes. Tommy studied him carefully, eyes narrowing. Look, Dec, right now you're a mix of pain and gut instinct. That's a dangerous combination. Don't let it push you into doing something reckless. What's your definition of reckless? Anything that gets you cuffed or killed. Then I'll stay measured. Everyone says that, right before they lose control. That night, Declan lay in bed staring at the ceiling while Camille slept beside him. She'd come in past midnight, mumbling something about the board meeting running longer than expected. Even in the dark, Declan could make out the faint scent on her, an antiseptic, impersonal soap only found in hotel bathrooms. He waited until her breathing deepened and steadied, then carefully slipped out of bed. The burner phone was on its charger as usual. He picked it up and started scrolling. The messages formed a narrative that cut sharper than any betrayal. Wesley had started flirting with her soon after his divorce, gradually crossing boundaries. What began as courteous messages turned into full-on emotional and physical entanglement. Dinners, hotels, exchanges no husband should ever have to read. But it wasn't the logistics that devastated Declan most. It was her tone. The way she spoke to Wesley, flirtatious, lively, full of energy she hadn't shown at home in years. She called him brilliant. She described her marriage as lifeless, her husband as dull and overly predictable. Declan kept scrolling, each message another wound. Then he reached one that froze him in place. Wesley, I think my husband knows. No, Wesley, he's completely oblivious, Camille whispered into the phone. He probably wouldn't even realize if I disappeared tomorrow. Then maybe it's time you finally did, Wesley suggested. Not just yet, she replied. I need to sort out the finances first. Everything's still tied to our joint accounts. I've got connections, Wesley offered. I can help you figure that part out. Let's talk tomorrow, Camille said. Same spot. Room 412. Declan set her phone back down and stepped into the bathroom, turning on the faucet to splash cold water across his face. The man staring back at him in the mirror looked hollow, dark circles under his eyes, skin pale and drawn, like someone who'd aged 10 years overnight. His phone buzzed with a message from Tommy. Found something, meet tomorrow, lunch. The night crawled and morning couldn't come fast enough. At lunch the next day, Tommy handed him a sealed manila folder across the diner table. Got some good news. And some bad, he said. The guy she's been seeing? He's in serious trouble. The downside is, she's caught up in it too. Declan opened the folder to find pages of records, financial transactions, hospital documentation, and covert photographs. Several pictures captured Camille and Wesley entering and exiting the Marriott downtown, spread out over 3 months. The hospital was in the middle of investigating Dr. Klein for Medicare fraud, staged operations, falsified medical charts, billing procedures that had never occurred. They're building a strong case, Tommy explained. And Camille's involvement? Declan asked. She's been pulling patient files she wasn't authorized to access. Backdated approvals. Her signatures on forms she had no right to touch. Declan flipped through the evidence. One photo showed Camille laughing, her face lit up in a way he hadn't seen in years. Another showed her and Wesley seated at a table in a dim restaurant, hands resting together between the wine glasses. How long have you known? Tommy asked quietly. Since 2 days ago, Declan said. I found a hidden phone. So what's your move now? I protect myself, Declan answered. She's been setting this up for a while. Lying, stealing, pretending everything's fine. I'm not just going to sit on my hands. Just don't do anything rash, Dec, Tommy cautioned. Declan met his eyes. His voice was calm, even. The damage is already done. Now I decide what kind of future I can salvage from the wreckage. That afternoon, Declan sat down across from his longtime attorney. James Morrison had handled their estate planning and contracts for years. I need to discuss filing for divorce, Declan said plainly. Morrison pulled a yellow legal pad in front of him. I'm sorry to hear that. What are the grounds? Take your pick. Infidelity, financial misconduct, maybe both. He handed over Tommy's folder. Morrison skimmed through the contents, scribbling notes as he went. This is heavy, he said at last. If she's implicated in a federal fraud investigation, it shifts everything. That kind of conviction affects spousal support, asset division, everything. What should I watch out for? Declan asked. You need to be careful not to come across like you're out for blood. Judges frown on revenge. I'm not after revenge, Declan replied. I want consequences. I'll start the paperwork, Morrison said. But one thing, don't confront her directly. Let this run through the legal process. Got it, Declan agreed. But even as he gave that nod, his mind was running through different contingencies, silently measuring the angles and the risks. That evening, Camille came home at her usual time. No excuses about late shifts. She was oddly relaxed, almost cheerful. How'd the contractor meeting go? She asked casually. Went well, Declan answered evenly. Riverside's moving forward. That's the same tunnel that had the collapse, isn't it? Different segment. The whole structure needs overhaul. She nodded half-heartedly, already unlocking her phone, clearly expecting a message that wasn't arriving. Wesley was probably going dark, trying to clean up his side. Camille, Declan said, everything okay at the hospital? You've seemed distracted lately. She looked up sharply, caught off guard. What are you implying? You've been logging a lot of late nights. Board meetings, paperwork, calls at all hours. It's just the usual workload. I can handle it. Why are you bringing this up? No real reason. I've been worried. Well, don't be. There was an edge to her voice. Maybe it had always been there, and he was only now hearing it for what it was. After dinner, Camille slipped away to her home office, leaving him alone. An hour later, Declan made his way upstairs and settled into the low-lit stillness of their bedroom. That's when he heard the buzz of the hidden second phone. Wesley was spiraling. The hospital had summoned him for a meeting the next morning, and he was in a panic, pleading to see Camille before then. Message after message appeared, chaotic, anxious, unraveling. Her responses came quickly, coolly. She said she'd meet him, same place as usual. They needed to get their versions of the story straight, tighten up any loose ends, and avoid suspicion. Declan saved every message. Then he made the call that would change everything. He phoned Tommy. "I need you to tail them. Tonight. I need visual confirmation." "Dec, are you sure about this?" "They're about to wipe everything. If we don't move now, we'll lose it all." There was a pause on the other end. "What exactly are you planning?" "What I should have done a long time ago, tell the truth." About an hour passed before Camille finally left. She claimed she was going to see her mother. Declan knew better. She was heading for the Marriott. 10 minutes later, he placed a call. "Hospital security? This is Declan Morrissey. I'd like to report suspected Medicare fraud involving Dr. Wesley Klein and Camille Morrissey, the head of nursing administration." The man on the line listened without interruption. Declan laid out the facts. Unusual financial activity, unauthorized database access, patterns of overbilling. He told them he had evidence. "Come in first thing in the morning," the security chief said. "Bring every piece of documentation you've got." Next, Declan contacted the FBI's healthcare fraud unit. Then he called Eva. "Dad? What's going on?" "I know it's late, honey, but I need you to come home." "Is something wrong with Mom?" "She's okay. For now. But something major is coming. And I want you and your sister to hear it from me, not the media. You're scaring me. I understand. I'm sorry. But I need you to trust that I'm doing this for all of us." "Okay, I'll drive out. I can be there by midday." "Thank you, Eva. I love you. Please don't forget that, no matter what happens." Then he called Isabel's dorm. She answered sleepily, her voice lined with irritation. She didn't hide her doubt, but in the end, she agreed to come too. The final call was the hardest of all. His mother, Martha Morrissey, 72, blunt as ever, and the family's moral compass. "Declan, what's wrong?" "I need to tell you something. It's about Camille." He told her everything, what he'd found, the messages, the deception. She listened without interrupting, interjecting only with pointed questions that revealed she'd suspected more than she'd ever admitted. "I never trusted that woman," Martha said plainly. "Too polished, always too rehearsed. Dad used to say charm was like a new coat of paint. It hides decay underneath. I did love her, Mom. You still do. But love doesn't erase betrayal. What should I do? What your father would have. Then that's what I'll do. I'm proud of you, son. Go finish it." "And Declan, don't let her take your daughters away," the voice cautioned him. "They might blame you for breaking the family apart, but blood runs deeper than confusion, and eventually truth has a way of rising above the lies." Camille crept in just after 2 a.m., silent and deliberate. She changed clothes in the bathroom, then slipped under the covers beside him as if nothing was amiss. "How's your mom doing?" Declan asked in a low voice. She froze for a split second. "What?" "You mentioned you were checking on her. How is she?" he repeated. "She's okay," Camille said quickly. "She needed help with her computer. You know how she is, always staying up too late and messing with settings." Declan didn't argue. He knew full well her mother was asleep by 9 every night without exception. Still, he let the lie hang in the air. "Good night, Camille." Neither of them found rest that night. By morning, a dull gray sky loomed overhead, and the ground shimmered with the first frost of the season. Camille showered, dressed, and stood at the mirror brushing her hair. "I might be late again," she said. "One of my clients has a situation. It's becoming a nightmare." "I'm sure it is," Declan replied, his tone flat. Something in the way he said it made her pause. She turned, eyes narrowing. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing," he said casually. "Just that client problems can get complicated. Personal." She stared at him, searching his face for something. Then she grabbed her purse. "I'll check in later." Once she was gone, Declan drove straight to the hospital. There, waiting for him, were the head of security, the hospital's legal officer, and an FBI agent in a gray suit. "Mr. Morrissey," the agent began, "we understand you're in possession of evidence linked to a fraudulent billing scheme." For the next 3 hours, Declan presented everything he'd gathered. Unauthorized access logs, falsified billing data, coordinated schemes involving hospital funds. He laid down bank records, call logs, and photos from discreet surveillance. "This is substantial," the agent said, flipping through the folder. "We'll need to act fast before anyone starts purging systems." "What's the next step?" Declan asked. "We'll secure warrants for digital records, documents, and devices. Arrests could begin within the next few days." "And my wife?" Declan pressed. "That'll depend," the attorney replied. "If she was just following instructions, it may result in disciplinary action. But if she had a direct role, she's facing federal charges." "There's more," Declan added. "They've been holding regular strategy meetings." "Where are they meeting?" "The Marriott downtown, room 412, tonight, around 8. The agent jotted down the details. "We'll have people in place." Declan drove home and waited for his daughters. Ava arrived first. Her usual composure had been replaced by tension. "Dad, what's happening?" she asked, concerned. "Sit down, sweetheart," Declan said gently. "There's something you need to hear." About an hour later, Isabel walked in wearing a college sweatshirt and an annoyed expression. "This better be important," she said. "I've got deadlines." "It is," he told her. "Please, sit down." And then he told them everything. The affair, the fraud, the investigation already in motion. Ava looked stunned, her face shifting from disbelief to alarm. Isabel stayed quiet, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the carpet. "So, you're divorcing Mom," Eva said slowly. "Yes," Declan replied, "because she cheated, and because she wrecked everything we spent years building." "This is insane," Isabel snapped. "You're blowing up our family just because you're bitter." "I'm not the one who broke it," Declan said softly. "I'm just done pretending. Your mother chose her path the moment she decided deception, theft, and infidelity were acceptable," Declan said, his voice void of emotion. "Maybe she wouldn't have strayed if you weren't so painfully dull," Isabel snapped, her words slicing through the air like a blade. Ava let out a breathy gasp, stunned, but Isabel pushed forward without hesitation. "You parade around like some moral authority, but you're just spineless. Mom wasted her life with someone who couldn't even scrape together enough for a weekend trip." "That's enough, Isabel," Ava whispered. "No, it isn't," Isabel fired back. "You're pathetic, Dad. You drown in your numbers and your lifeless job, and then act shocked when Mom went looking for something more thrilling, more alive." Declan's response was quiet, but loaded. "So this is all on me? You're ruining her professional life just because you can't handle the fact she moved on with someone better." "Better?" he repeated. "The man who profits off the suffering of patients and families?" "You don't know the full picture. You're jumping to conclusions." "No, Isabel. I'm not speculating. I've got hard proof. Files, records, time logs, everything." "Then that makes you sick." "Snooping on your wife? That's twisted." Eva attempted to calm things down, but Isabel was in full flight now. An explosive mix of adolescent rage and self-righteous anger turned into a weapon. "You know what, Dad? I'm glad she found someone who actually values her. She's been miserable with you longer than you realize. It wasn't just her. We all saw it. Mom, me, Eva, even Grandma Martha. We talked about how stuck she was, how she could have lived a fuller life." Declan's brow furrowed. "Martha said that?" "She told Mom marriage isn't supposed to feel like a cage. It's about finding joy. She told her to break free, try something different. And you? What did you tell her?" "I told her the truth. Life's too short to spend it with someone who doesn't light you up inside." He turned to Eva, eyes heavy. "And what about you?" Eva's response barely reached above a whisper. "I didn't know there was another man in the picture at first. I just knew she was deeply unhappy. But you still encouraged her to leave me." "I told her to follow what brought her to life. I didn't know there were crimes involved." Declan stood slowly, each movement weighted with hurt and clarity. He seemed older now, his presence quieter but more resolute. "I think it's best that you both leave." "Dad," Eva began, her voice cracking. "No, you've both said enough. I've heard exactly how you see me. Boring, inadequate, disposable. You cheered her on as she walked away and helped her find someone else." His voice dropped, cold and final. "Well, now you'll live with what that brings." Isabel's confidence began to waver. "What does that mean?" she asked, her voice no longer sharp. "It means you're cut off. Eva, no more mortgage support. Isabel, no more tuition payments." "You can't do that!" Isabel shouted. "I already did," he replied calmly. "Called the bank this morning. Eva, the last payment's been made. Isabel, your next semester's bill will be entirely your responsibility. Start applying for scholarships or finding a job." Eva's voice was thin, trembling. "That's not right. We're your daughters." Declan's eyes narrowed. "No, you've chosen your mother's side and made sure I knew it." He looked at both of them, unblinking. "You can live wherever you choose. But don't expect me to keep funding your loyalty to betrayal." "Dad, please," Eva pleaded, her voice catching. "You meant every word. Both of you. And I won't keep paying to be humiliated by my own children." Isabel's face went pale, her confidence crumbling. "So this is how it ends? You're tearing us apart over this?" "This family didn't fall apart because of me," he replied, voice sharp as ice. "That credit belongs to your mother. I'm simply deciding who's responsible for cleaning up what she left behind." He walked to the front door and swung it wide open. "I want both of you gone. Go stay with your mother, your grandmother, or that perfect doctor. Klein you seem to admire so much, but you're not staying here." Eva was already in tears, her voice trembling with panic. "Dad, please, I'm sorry. I didn't really understand what was happening." He shook his head. "No, Eva. You understood plenty. You just thought you'd get away with it." "But I can't do this by myself. I can't afford the mortgage." "Then sell the house," he replied. "Or go ask your mother for help. She was already halfway out the door anyway. I'm sure she's been stashing money for her bright new future." Isabel's chin lifted, her expression stiff with teenage fury. "Fine. We don't need you. Mom's going to be way better off without you." "I'm sure she'll be thrilled," he said evenly. "At least until the sentencing." "She's not going to prison," Isabel snapped. "You're just saying that to scare us. Medicare fraud comes with a 5-year mandatory minimum. Add wire fraud? That's 10. Conspiracy? That brings the total to at least 15, and that's if she cuts a deal." Isabel's lips parted, but no sound came out. She looked like the blood had drained from her face. "You're bluffing." "I work in engineering," he replied calmly. "Numbers don't lie." "And neither do I." Eva was crying now, sobs rising from somewhere deep. "Dad, please. There has to be a way back. Can't we fix this? Can't we be a family again?" "We were a family," Declan said, his voice steady and unshaken. "Then the three of you decided I wasn't worth standing beside. That was your choice. Now you have to live with it." He stood there silently, holding the door open. After a long, painful pause, Eva picked up her purse and keys, her tears falling freely. Isabel followed without a word, her face flushed with anger. As she passed, she muttered bitterly, "I'll never forgive you for this." He didn't flinch. "I won't forgive you either," he replied, "so we're even." He closed the door behind them and moved to the kitchen window. Outside, the two girls stood near Eva's car, locked in a heated discussion, likely trying to decide where to go next. Eventually, they both climbed in, and the car pulled away, leaving Declan alone in the house he'd built for the family they no longer were. He poured himself a strong drink and sat at the kitchen table, the silence pressing in. In less than 24 hours, he'd lost his wife, his daughters, and his own mother's support. And yet, for the first time in years, his mind felt eerily focused, as though something inside him had finally snapped into place. His phone buzzed. "FBI just picked up Klein at the Marriott. Camille's in custody. Call me." "Tommy." Declan stared at the screen, then deleted the message without responding. He refilled his glass. Then he reached for his phone again and dialed. "Morrison, it's Declan. I want to fast-track the divorce." A pause followed. Declan, are you absolutely sure? This is a lot all at once. I'm sure, he interrupted. They made their decisions. Now it's time I make mine. And I want both of my daughters removed from my will. The next morning, the scandal went public. Breaking. Dr. Wesley Klein and Nurse Camille Morrissey indicted on multiple federal counts, including conspiracy, Medicare fraud, wire fraud, and theft of government resources. News broadcasts flashed their mugshots across the screen. Klein looked drained and haggard, Camille dazed, as though the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. Declan's phone lit up with call after call, reporters, colleagues, neighbors, friends. He ignored every one of them. Instead, he got in his car and drove across town to his mother's house. Martha opened the door before he could knock. Her eyes were dark with guilt and understanding. I saw the news, she said softly. I know what happened. Do you? Declan asked, stepping inside. Do you realize that the advice you gave Camille is part of what landed her in a jail cell? Martha moved slowly toward the kitchen, her posture weary. I never told her to break the law. No, Declan said, voice sharp. You just told her to betray me. I just wanted her to be happy, even if it meant destroying me to get there, he finished coldly. Martha lifted her chin, shoulders squared, meeting his gaze with a mix of pride and unspoken remorse. She was miserable, Declan. She came to me in tears, saying she felt trapped, like you weren't giving her what she needed. And your advice was for her to betray me? He asked, voice brittle. I told her to reevaluate her life. Marriage isn't supposed to feel like confinement. It's a vow, Declan said sharply. A promise. You and Dad were the ones who taught me that. Your father and I had passion, Declan. We burned for each other. What you and Camille had was routine. The sting of those words wasn't in their cruelty. It was in their accuracy. Declan had always prided himself on reliability, on being the one everyone could lean on without fail. So the girls knew? He asked quietly. Martha hesitated before nodding. They did. They were worried about both of you. They sure had a strange way of showing concern, he muttered, calling me boring, saying Camille deserved better. They're still figuring things out. No, he replied. They understand more than you think. Just like you do. He turned, stepping toward the door, his tone firm. You need to understand this. Your guidance helped dismantle our entire family. He paused, then continued, each word deliberate. Camille is facing up to 15 years in federal prison. Eva might lose the house. Isabel could be forced to drop out of college. And I've filed for divorce. Declan, wait. No, Mom. I've waited long enough. I've spent years being the safe choice, the steady one, the invisible man. That ends today. What are you going to do? I'm walking away. From all of you. He left his mother's house and drove directly to the courthouse. Everything was ready. The divorce petition, emergency orders to freeze their joint accounts, and legal motions to bar Camille from entering the property. There will be a court hearing, Morrison, his attorney, explained. But given the severity of the charges she's up against, it should go smoothly. You'll retain the house, the retirement accounts, everything. What about alimony? If she's convicted, she forfeits all rights to support. She'll be lucky to walk away with anything at all. Over the following weeks, Declan settled into a quiet routine, his days filled with work, his nights with solitude and quiet meals. No tension, no manipulation, just peace. For the first time in a long while, he found solace in the stillness. No more pretending. No more deceit. Tommy kept him informed throughout. Klein was finished. Just the drug trafficking charges alone guaranteed at least 20 years. Camille's cooperation had earned her some mercy, but she was still likely facing 5 to 7 years behind bars. The divorce moved ahead without a hitch. With Camille's legal troubles leaving her powerless to contest anything, the court granted Declan full ownership of their assets, the house, retirement funds, joint savings, even Camille's car and personal belongings. Then, just before Christmas, 3 months after the indictments, a knock echoed on Declan's door. Standing on his porch was Vincent Torino, clad in a tracksuit, his grin sharp and calculating. "Got a minute, engineer? What do you want?" Declan asked, eyeing him with suspicion. Just thought I'd drop by and say thanks. Klein coughed up the full amount. With interest. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course not, Torino said with a knowing smile. But let's just say someone gave me a very helpful tip. That kind of favor deserves a little recognition. He handed Declan a thick envelope. 5 grand, all cash. I'm not accepting this. Sure you are. Call it a holiday bonus, or danger pay if you prefer. As Torino descended the porch stairs, he glanced back with a half smirk. You've got a real talent for this kind of thing, engineer. Something to think about. When tunnel crawling gets dull, you know where to find me. Declan closed the door gently behind him, eyes settling on the pile of money atop the table. It was the tangible proof of everything he'd once vowed never to become. Cold, calculating, a man who let others carry out violence on his behalf. Yet at the same time, it represented a kind of justice the legal system often failed to deliver in time. The holiday season passed in near total stillness. Declan spent Christmas alone, wrapped in blankets, flipping through books and watching old monochrome movies. Cards arrived from both Eva and Isabel. They felt like stiff, uneasy attempts at peace, awkward and unnatural. He didn't respond. By the start of the new year, the legal battles had been resolved through plea agreements. Dr. Klein confessed to every charge and took a 25-year prison term. He might be eligible for release in 15. Camille took a deal as well, pleading guilty to conspiracy and fraud. She received 7 years. With good behavior, she might walk free in 5. That same week, the divorce was finalized. When Declan exited the courthouse, he felt unbound. Single again, in full control of his finances, and answerable to no one but himself. Spring brought new construction contracts and longer hours under the sun. Declan found himself in a new rhythm, working during the day, dining quietly at home, walking the streets at dusk, and spending weekends fixing things in the garage. He dropped 30 pounds, and with it, rediscovered a part of himself he'd thought long lost. One evening, Tommy arrived with an update. Klein's dead, he said without ceremony. Hung himself this morning, used a bedsheet. Declan blinked, calm, more curious than shocked. Did he leave anything behind? No official note, Tommy replied. Rumor is, he couldn't stomach doing 20 years in a cell. What about Camille? She's still inside, playing by the rules. Might get released in 4. They sat quietly on the porch, while streaks of amber and blood red stretched across the sky. Ever wish it had gone another way? Tommy asked. Regret what? Declan replied. Choosing honesty? Refusing to be someone's pawn? Setting boundaries? Cutting ties with your daughters? They walked away first, Declan said, voice like granite. I just didn't chase them. And if they returned? Tommy asked. If Eva or Isabel came back, genuinely sorry, hoping to make amends, they'd find that some ruins don't get rebuilt once they've burned to ash. Tommy nodded slowly. You're different now, Dec. I stopped pretending, Declan said. For nearly 50 years, I lived the way people expected. Stable, soft, always forgiving. That nearly broke me. And now? Now I live by my own code. I'm done being anyone's fallback option. As summer waned and the leaves began to change, Declan received word that his mother had passed. A heart attack, quick and painless, that's what the report said. Her funeral was simple. A few old friends from church, distant relatives and his daughters, who seemed unsure where they belonged. Declan kept his distance, close enough to pay respect, far enough to avoid conversation. As Eva began moving toward him after the service, Declan had already turned and walked away. Martha's will left everything she had to her granddaughters. It wasn't a fortune, but it belonged to them now. Declan felt no anger. His mother had made her choice long before the funeral. 2 years after Camille's sentencing, a letter reached him, forwarded through Morrison's office. Declan, I don't know if you'll even read this, but I had to write. For 2 years I've lived with the weight of what I did, to you, to our family. There's no excuse. I was reckless, self-centered, cruel. I traded nearly 2 decades of marriage for a handful of months filled with illusions. And in doing that, I destroyed everything we'd built together. The girls don't just resent me for losing you, they blame me for shattering our home. I didn't just ruin our relationship, I broke theirs too. But there's one thing I need you to hear, even in the middle of all that betrayal. I never stopped loving you. Wesley's gone. He couldn't face the consequences. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't reflect on how our selfishness left destruction behind us. I'm not reaching out in hopes of being pardoned. I know I haven't earned that right. But I need you to know. I finally understand what I once held in my hands, and so foolishly let slip away. You were the most honorable, compassionate man I ever had in my life, and I was too blind, too arrogant to recognize it until it was far too late. The girls bring up your name now and then. They're struggling, but they're managing to get by. Ava lost the house, but found a smaller apartment she can afford. Isabel made it through college with help from grants and student loans. They both carry guilt for what they said to you. They haven't stopped loving you. I'm scheduled to be released next year. I have no idea where I'll go or how I'll rebuild from this. All I know is that I'll carry the weight of my betrayal for the rest of my life. I love you, I always did. Camille? Declan read the note twice before sliding it into the shredder. Love without the backbone of loyalty was meaningless. Remorse, when it came without sacrifice, was just another form of self-indulgence. He poured himself a glass of whiskey and stepped onto the back porch. Watching the fading sun cast amber light across the skyline he'd dedicated his life to fortifying. In the far distance, the lights along the riverside tunnel flickered steadily, an enduring structure, now safer, reinforced, and reliable. Some things he knew could be salvaged with time and work. Others had to be reduced to rubble and rebuilt from the foundation. Declan had opted for the latter, renewal through destruction. 3 years after the convictions, on a brisk February morning, he was conducting an inspection on a downtown overpass when he spotted Eva. She was emerging from a coffee shop, a touch older perhaps, but more poised, more certain of herself. Their eyes met across the street. She paused uncertain and offered a hesitant wave. Declan regarded her for a beat, then turned away and continued down the sidewalk.